Sausage.
Hello everyone, this is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marc, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Kirby's Epic Yarn, a game where you play as everyone's favorite little marshmallow, only this time everything, including yourself, is made out of yarn. Kirby's Epic Yarn originally came out on October 17th, 2010 for the Nintendo Wii and was later ported to the 3DS on March 8th, 2019. I played the Wii version via my Wii U, but I imagine the best way to play Epic Yarn is on 3DS, but I'll get to that later. So, sometimes you just want a relaxing game. Something with a lot of charm that puts being delightful and pleasant above all else. That is exactly what Kirby's Epic Yarn is. Its charm, ease, and overall pleasant nature are both its greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses. While there are an abundance of pleasantries to be found in Epic Yarn, a challenge of any kind is missing throughout. There are easy games, and then there are games like Epic Yarn. Games where there is literally no fail state. No matter what you do or how hard you try, you can't fail in Epic Yarn. Did you miss a jump and fall to your death? Don't worry about it. You'll magically be brought to the last platform you were on as if nothing happened. Did an enemy hit you? That's okay because Kirby isn't concerned with health bars. Instead, you'll just lose some of the gems and jewels you picked up, like Sonic losing his rings, except if you end up losing all of your gems and jewels, you'll just be poor but perfectly fine to keep on playing. Now, I don't think this is a bad design choice, but it is a deliberate one, and one that may make Epic Yarn a game that isn't for you. I very much enjoyed my time with Epic Yarn because, as I said at the top, sometimes you just want something nice and pleasant that doesn't require a lot of thought. But that comes at a cost. I could only play Epic Yarn in short doses because the lack of challenge led to a lack of engagement, and with every passing minute it got more and more dull, especially when I realized there really are no stakes and it's impossible to lose. This of course means it's a great game for kids and great for playing with kids, but your mileage will vary if you're an older kid or an adult who wants more out of their games, which is why I think the 3DS version would be the way to go. You could play it at your leisure in small chunks, and this would go a long way in keeping the game as exciting as a game like it can be. But the game itself also does its best to keep things fresh and exciting by throwing in a bunch of little mechanics where you transform into this or that and play a chunk of every level in a completely different way, like turning into a ship and playing out a section like it's a shmup, or turning into a fish that feels an awful lot like Echo the Dolphin. Most transformations are reused, so you won't be getting a new one every level, but all of the transformations sans one where you create tracks for a train with your Wiimote, something I'm sure feels much better with a stylus on the 3DS, are fun when they happen. But even so, that lack of consequences can't help but constantly creep its head in, as you're always aware that no matter what you do, you can't lose. You can't even lose when you're taking on one of the bosses, and this is probably where the lack of challenge feels the most noticeable. When playing through a regular level where you're jumping from point to point and interacting with the environment in some yarny way, like pulling a button to open a pathway to the next area or swinging from a button to reach an otherwise impossible to get to platform, the lack of challenge is noticeable, but not that big of a deal. However, when you're fighting against a boss who should seem somewhat daunting, knowing there's not a single way you can fail takes all of the excitement out of what should be one of the highlights of the game. Instead, the boss fights ended up being my least favorite parts of the game. And while every level is creatively designed and different from one another, they still can't stop the potential weight of one's eyelids from falling, because as unique as each level may be, you're still doing the same thing, jumping around, snatching things with your yarn whip, and interacting with the environment to a minimal degree. Don't get me wrong, I loved every second I spent with the game. I just couldn't play it for more than 3,600 seconds at a time because it's just too damn easy for its own good, an easiness that is sure to turn some people off and can't be ignored. What you shouldn't turn off or ignore, however, is the audio, because the music is wonderful, especially the track titled Lava Landing. That song in particular is quickly becoming one of my favorite Kirby songs, as well as one of my all-time favorite video game songs, period. And for those who have loved the series for a long time like myself, the final area is a nice nostalgia trip with the classic music to go along with it. Despite all the things I said about its difficulty, or lack thereof, I really enjoyed my time with Kirby's Epic Yarn. It's charming and guaranteed to put a smile on your face, but Depending on what you want out of games, that smile may not last long. That said, if you want something low-key with still beautiful art despite its lack of HDness and fantastic music, Kirby's Epic Yarn is well worth checking out, especially if you have young ones at home. I may be single and childless, but if I wasn't, I couldn't think of a better game to share with them. Anyway, that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marc. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PXSausage. The site is, of course, pixelatedsausage.com, where you can find this podcast, the Pixelated Sausage Podcast, and Unamazingly Baka, all of which are available on podcast services across the globe. You can also check out the video version of this here show over at youtube.com/pixelatedsausage. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz if you haven't already. It is greatly appreciated and does help a lot. If you'd like to check out the art I'm making, go back over to pixelatedsausage.com, and if you see something you like, you can purchase a print of the piece you fancy. And if you fancy the site in general and anything that we do, please go over to patreon.com/pxs and support us that way. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.